Iowans have a deep connection to water.
These waterways existed before Iowa became a state.
People lived and worked on these waterways for thousands of years before colonization.
We have a responsibility to make sure our precious waterways are healthy for future generations.
Iowans have a right to clean water.
And the state has a duty to protect that right.
But instead of protecting our waters, Iowa's decision makers have passed the buck in order to protect the profits of big corporate ag,
including massive industrialized factory farms.
That's why we sued the state of Iowa to hold them accountable to the people of Iowa under the public trust doctrine.
Iowans want healthy, thriving communities with good paying jobs.
Not a corporate-controlled system that pollutes our air and water and makes us sick while the profits go up to out-of-state corporations.
We need Iowa to step into bold solutions.
Not trade our water for short-term gains.
But the state isn't doing enough.
And we are running out of time.
So we're taking it into our own hands. A group of everyday Iowans, parents, grandparents,
teachers, local business owners, family farmers, students,
nurses, artists, and so many more.
Because at the end of the day, we all
have a right to clean water.
Hey folks, thanks for joining us. We wanted to hop on a live stream to talk about what's going on in Iowa with our clean water lawsuit after a really big day yesterday. But before we dive in, we should probably introduce ourselves. Most people call me Emma, but some people mistakenly call me Emily, which I don't really understand because Emma is a far more common name, but I roll with it. I'll also respond to, hey you, mom, or M-Dog. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm an organizer with Food and Water Watch based up in Northwest Iowa, where we are working to take down the factory farm industry.
And I'm Luke. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm with Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement on the Clean Water Action Team. We are so thrilled that you all could join us. In the next 15 minutes, we're going to share the details of the clean water lawsuit we filed in Iowa, why we felt it was necessary to sue the state, and a quick breakdown of what happened at our Iowa Supreme Court hearing yesterday. We're going to be joined in a moment by two of the lawyers who have been spearheading the lawsuit, Brent Newell from Public Justice and Tara Heinzen from Food and Water Watch. They'll do a way better job of explaining the legal ins and outs than either Emma or I can.
That's no kidding. I am still trying to figure out how to pronounce interlocutory appeal. Until now, my method has just been to mumble it really fast so nobody could tell that I couldn't say it correctly, but I'm already getting ahead of myself. Luke, do you want to take a minute to explain exactly why we sued the state of Iowa?
For sure. So we're going to step away, go back in time to March of 2019. That's when CCI and Food and Water Watch, represented by Public Justice, Food and Water Watch, Roxanne Conlon, and Channing Dutton, filed a lawsuit against the state of Iowa for their failure to protect the Raccoon River and for the use and benefit of all Iowans. The Raccoon River is a major waterway in Iowa, providing drinking water to more than 500,000 people, as well as countless recreational activities. Unfortunately, there is a well-known statewide water crisis in Iowa, and it is impacting the Raccoon River. Pollution from factory farms has been one of the major sources of harm for this waterway, and the Raccoon River runs through one of the most intensely farmed areas of the United States, where runoff from animal manure and fertilizer poses a threat to tap water and recreational use of the river.
That's right. Statewide, the factory hog farm industry creates 72 billion pounds of manure each year. If we compared that to human waste, it'd be about 2.5 times that of New York City each year. The manure is often laden with bacteria like E. coli, and it contains compounds like phosphorus and nitrates, all of which can create severe health issues. This untreated manure is spread across thousands and thousands of acres of Iowa's farmland, where it runs off into our waterways, polluting and impairing one of our most vital natural resources.
And that's exactly what has happened with the Raccoon River. The river has had consistent problems with toxic pollutants such as blue-green algae, The growth of blue-green algae is spurred by nitrogen and phosphorus, which, like Emma just mentioned, is present in manure, as well as the chemical fertilizers farmers use to boost crop yields. Des Moines Water Works, Iowa's largest water utility, has had to invest in one of the most expensive nitrate removal systems in the world in order to provide safe, clean drinking water to residents. As a result, residents have seen a rise in their water rates, and customers are effectively paying to clean up a mess created by big ag.
I think it's important to note that we're speaking of agricultural giants like Smithfield, Cargill, or Bayer Monsanto when we say big ag. They are the ones who have created this broken system that individual farmers are trapped in. Industrial agribusiness is the problem. We know that farmers want to see their communities flourish, restore Iowa's rivers and lakes, and work together to solve our climate crisis. So we're working with farmers against massive corporations to ensure that farmers can afford to protect our water and our climate, because we all do better when we all do better.
Exactly. So now that we've framed the problem, let's talk about our solutions. Our lawsuit is based on the public trust doctrine. So the public trust doctrine guarantees the public's right to use and enjoy navigable waters. It was the law when Iowa became a state, and it is the law today. The state is violating that right by abdicating control to agribusinesses. Instead of providing regulatory mandates, the state exempts agricultural sources and makes pollution controls of nitrogen and phosphorus voluntary, leading to the state of crisis Iowa's waterways are currently enduring.
Yep. We're sick and tired of seeing our water, our pocketbooks, and our quality of life exploited just so big ag can profit.
That's right. Clean water should be a human right.
Mm-hmm. And it isn't just Iowans being impacted by the state's failure to protect our waterways from polluters. It's proving detrimental to the people and environments from Iowa all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. The water pollution created in Iowa flows south and becomes a massive contributor to the Gulf Dead Zone. Instead of protecting the public's use of waters, Iowa's decision makers have passed the buck in favor of the interests of private parties, creating long-reaching, devastating consequences.
And because the state has failed to protect Iowans' paramount right to use the Raccoon River, we're going to hold the state accountable. Our lawsuit is seeking several forms of relief, including an order requiring the state to adopt a Raccoon River remedial plan with mandatory agricultural water pollution controls, an order imposing a moratorium that would prohibit construction and operation of new and expanding animal feeding operations in the Raccoon River watershed, an order prohibiting the state from taking any further action that would violate Iowa citizens' rights under the public trust doctrine, and a declaration that the state has violated its duty to protect the Raccoon River for public use and declares the state's policy of voluntary controls unconstitutional. This case is an opportunity to not just clean up the Raccoon River, but to stand up for our constitutional rights to clean water and to be a good neighbor. Our clean water future and constitutional rights are both at stake.
Wonderfully put, Luke. Now that we've laid the groundwork, let's turn it over to the best lawyers this side of the Mississippi to explain just where we're at in the case. Tara Heinzen is Food and Water Watch's legal director. So, Tara, want to give us the scoop?
Yes, thanks, Emma. So as we expected, the state has been working to put an end to our lawsuit. Yesterday, the Iowa Supreme Court heard an appeal filed by the state after District Court Judge Hansen denied the state's motion to dismiss our case. This is a process called an interlocutory appeal. The state made three main arguments. First, that members of Iowa CCI and Food and Water Watch do not have standing because the court can't order relief that will meaningfully redress our injuries. Second, that the court can't hear the case because it can't order the state to clean up the river without infringing on the legislature's authority. And third, that the court can't hear the case because a declaration saying the state violated the public trust doctrine won't make a difference because it won't force the state to clean up the river. We argued the case should proceed because we have standing, because the court can provide us with meaningful relief for our harms from water pollution, and because this lawsuit involves the public trust doctrine and the constitutional rights of Iowans are at stake, which means the court should decide the issue because the court should always hear a case involving Iowans' rights. Brent Newell, our lead counsel from Public Justice, presented the oral argument to the court, so I'm sure he has more to say about how it went.
The hearing is the opportunity for the justices to ask questions and hear the lawyers explain their arguments. Now, since we prevailed on the motion to dismiss in the district court, the lawyer for the state went first, and then I followed after his argument. The justices asked both sides lots of questions.
Brent, could you explain the questions the justices asked you during the hearing?
The justices were very interested in what the district court could do to fix the problem if the district court found that the state had violated the public trust doctrine. I explained that the injunctions we asked for would compel the state to come up with a plan, a mandatory plan, to limit agricultural pollution and also prevent more new and expanding animal feeding operations in the Raccoon River watershed. I also explained that the court could declare this voluntary policy unconstitutional and tell the state what its duty is to protect the right to clean water.
Thank you, Brent. Now, Tara doesn't know this, but sometimes I call her Matlock behind her back. So Matlock, how is this case different than the Des Moines Waterworks lawsuit a few years back?
Sure. So the Des Moines Waterworks sued drainage districts in 3 counties in federal court for allowing water pollution from farm fields to run off into waterways without federal Clean Water Act permits. And the federal court in that case dismissed the case after the Iowa Supreme Court determined that these counties were immune from the lawsuit's claims under Iowa state law. I know that's kind of complicated. But here, our case hopes to fix some of the same water pollution problems, including nitrates in the Raccoon River that threaten recreation and drinking water for Des Moines residents. But our case is based in the public trust doctrine. Our case is in state court, and it's against the state, which has undeniable public trust obligations to all islands. So the cases are similar in some ways, but very different in terms of the specific legal theories.
Thanks for sharing, Tara. Brent, back to you. In terms of our case specifically, what are the possible outcomes of the Supreme Court's decision?
Well, there are several possible outcomes. The court would agree with our arguments and send the case back to the district court. And the district court in Polk County, Judge Hanson, would then hear the evidence, determine whether the state has violated the public trust doctrine and the Iowa Constitution, and also decide what forms of relief would best correct the problem. Of course, the court could also rule in whole or in part in favor of the state, in which case there could be several outcomes, and it's sort of hard to predict what those could be. But the worst case scenario would be that our case would be dismissed entirely.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on to break everything down for us. We really appreciate it. Iowans and Iowan farmers know what practices work for their farms, the community, and the environment. But we can see from the recent reports that voluntary compliance doesn't work when farmers are trapped in a system driven by corporate ag. We all have to do our part for people and the planet, but no big industry will voluntarily change its practices. Iowans need a system that empowers our farmers to be the solution. The state of Iowa must put forth actionable, mandatory solutions designed for widely shared prosperity and stewardship of our natural world. We need the state to support farming that replenishes these systems and reverses the harm for the health of our communities, our land, and the food it produces.
I couldn't agree more. We look forward to hearing the Iowa Supreme Court's decision. If you want to make sure you get any and all updates about the case, be sure to sign our Right to Clean Water petition. The link is scrolling on the screen, and then we'll also make sure it's popped into the chat.
And if folks have questions about the lawsuit or about any of our work, feel free to leave them as a comment and we'll try and respond right away. You can also visit righttocleanwater.org to stay up to date. And if you're interested in supporting our work to protect our right to clean water, you can follow the donation link we just shared to give. I will say, we only accept donations from incredibly smart, charming, good-looking people. So yeah, you're invited to give, you old fox. We truly appreciate everyone who supports our fight, whether it's with their time or their dollars. So thank you for being a part of this movement, and thanks for tuning in today.
Until next time.